exclusivity starts to look arbitrary. And the assumption that Israel's security preferences automatically outrank everyone else's, well, that starts to fray. None of this requires hostility towards Israel to acknowledge, does it? It only requires honesty about how power and risk are actually distributed in the Middle East. Wars are not paid for evenly. Decisions are not shared evenly. And when the bill comes due, the state picks up the tab, are entitled to ask for tools, not lectures, aren't they? Surely. There's only two ways this plays out, and neither are particularly comfortable for Israel. Oh dear, how sad. Never mind, everyone get out your tiniest violins. If Israel succeeds in blocking Qatar, the message to every other US host state is that absorbing risk buys you nothing. That exposure is your problem, and protection remains conditional on someone else's comfort. That doesn't restore stability, that accelerates some quiet hedging, because states can't rebalance inside the system that starts looking for options outside of it. If Israel fails, something more subtle but more dangerous happens from its perspective. The precedent ends up hardening. A host state takes a hit, recalibrates defensively, as Qatar is now doing, and Washington accepts the logic of that. From that point on, Israel isn't arguing against ambition, it's arguing against risk management. And that's a much harder sell when the risk is visible and the damage is already done. Israel, of course, would, I dare say, prefer this conversation never happened. It would prefer that the June escalation be treated as an anomaly. The Al Udeid strike as a footnote. Qatar's response as ambition rather than insurance. That's why the pressure campaign is already underway. That's why the language is sharp. That's why the lobbying is intense.